We have made frequency tables before, obviously to help us get a better idea of the frequency. How many times is something occurring within a particular population, right? Now, we can make either a column graph to represent that or a frequency histogram. And as you can see, there is a slight difference between a histogram and a column graph. The biggest being there are no gaps between the data values, okay? A lot of you on the group activity with that last question, I think it was on the prices of shoes where you had to make a frequency table. Most of you wrote shoes that are less than 80 and shoes that are greater than 80, as in $80 or whatever you're paying for them. But you actually have to break that down even further into what are called class intervals. And I'm gonna help you find that today, okay? For most of the situations, you can sort of guess what your intervals should be, but there's a mathematical way that you can do it. So let's think about, first of all, a conceptual difference between a frequency histogram and a column graph. Which one do you think is a display of discrete data? Which displays discrete? Is it the column graph in orange or the frequency histogram in yellow? What do you think? Yeah, the column graph. Why? Yeah, if you look at, so in other words, this is your discrete and this is your continuous. Sally, that's me, is going to walk you through the process of creating a frequency histogram. Here is the scenario. If you take a look, it says the weight of 17 pineapples was recorded in kilograms. Each measurement was rounded down to the nearest 0.1 kilogram. You have a list of 17 pineapples. It says organize the data into class intervals, draw a frequency histogram, and find the modal class. All right. To find those class intervals, you're going to follow these steps. You're going to find the range. Range is a measure of what? Do you remember? Spread. It's a measure of spread. How far is your largest value from your smallest value? How varied is your data? That's your range. And as you know, you take your largest value minus your smallest value. How do you find your mean? What do you do to find mean of data?
The average of each sample.
You add them all up and divide by how many there are, right? How do you find the mode? What is mode? What occurs the most, right? How do you find the median? The middle, which means you first have to put your numbers in order, right? And if two of them are in the middle, do you remember how to find the median? Thoughts? You add those up and divide by 2. We'll see that again in a few days. But I say all that because this process requires the range, the largest minus the smallest. What do you think modal means? Is it referring to median or mode? Mode. So when they ask find a modal class, that's the class that occurs what? Most often, right? So we actually know the modal class when we organize this frequency histogram. Okay, so we're going to find the intervals. How are we going to separate this data? So you find the range, the largest value minus the smallest value. Let's go ahead and do that. You take your largest value. What's my largest value in that data set?
What?
On the data set that you have here, and let me enlarge it for you. What's the largest value? 4.2. 4.2. What's the smallest value? 0.3. So take a moment, put that in your calculator, and tell me what you get. 3.9. Now, you're going to take that range and you're going to divide that by the number of classes. Well, how do you get the number of classes? You use something called the 2 to the k rule. It's really not that bad. All that means is you say, you want 2 to the k to be greater than your number of observations. What's your number of observations? 17, because there are 17 pineapples. So 2 to the what power is going to be greater than 17? Is 2 to the first greater than 17? No. What's 2 to the first? 2. Is 2 to the second greater than 17? No. What's 2 to the second? 4. Is 2 to the third greater than 17? No. What's 2 to the third? 8. Is 2 to the fourth? No. Is 2 to the fifth? Yes. 2 to the fifth is greater than 17. And 5 is your number of classes. Okay? So that means that you're going to end up taking 3.9 divided by 5 and round up to the nearest whole number. So, take your calculator, take 3.9 and divide that by 5. One? Points, round it to the nearest whole number, what would that be? 1. Well, what's all that mean? That means that your width is going to be by ones. So 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. All right? This tells you your width. So if you look down onto how they constructed this frequency histogram, you'll see on the weight, that's how they divided their data. So just to reiterate, the whole process that we're doing is to find an interval to allow us to draw a graph that has no gaps in between. All right? So when you have to draw a frequency histogram, a histogram is not going to have gaps. A column graph is going to. It deals with discrete data that doesn't have room for decimals. But because we have weight, and weight is continuous, making a frequency histogram fits a data set better than would a column graph that is only about discrete data. Does that make sense? Any questions? When you're finished, because most of you are almost done, you can work in your same groups. There are, I believe, 3 problems, and you have the answer key. So if you look under answer key, you can check your answers as you go. So once you finish this packet, you're going to staple your homework from the other day to that packet. You're going to turn it in to me. Then you're going to move on to this exercise 9B. If you're confused, you have an answer key, and you have me and your other classmates to ask questions about. Does that make sense? All right. That's what we're going to be doing the rest of the hour. The modal class is 1 to 2 because it has the highest frequency. Just a last note.